Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 17th, 2022 meeting of the City of Glendale Historical Preservation Commission. To help slow the transmission of COVID-19 and protect the health and safety of the community, City Council, as well as board and commission meetings, will continue to be closed to the public for in-person attendance. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their practice social distancing. Meetings are broadcast on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is up for discussion. Okay. At least 48 hours notice was required to request reading sign language translation in Braille. Wrong one. Our agenda was posted at least 72 hours prior to this meeting, and our public records will be available for Glendale City Clerk in room 110. Is everything complete, Mr. Cardinale, like we did in the past?
I think we need to do roll call.
Okay. Next up, roll call.
All right, Commissioner Vartanian?
Here.
Commissioner Morgan? Commissioner Morgan?
We lose it?
Volume?
Here.
There we go.
Commissioner Yurka?
Here.
Commissioner Cognati?
Present?
Chair Doom?
Here.
Everyone's here, 5.
Terrific. I'm so glad we're all here on this St. Patrick's Day. Luck of the Irish to all of us this evening as we continue going forth. Item number 2 on our agenda regards, we posted the agenda, I just mentioned that. Our approval of minutes are still a work in transition. So we're going to delay this until our next meeting. Item number 4 is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. The Glendale Historic Preservation Commission may request and respond to the speaker, but there is no time for debate or decision. Jay, do we have any oral communication cards?
No, we have no calls.
No calls. Terrific. Next, moving right along, is time for board member and commission member comments. Would any of our fellow commissioners comment on anything at this time?
I would like to comment on the Stone Barn grand opening ceremony, which is this weekend. So just to read a little bit about what's going to happen.
Commissioner, would you like me to share that graphic for you?
Yes. You could put it up there. I'd appreciate it. So they can look at the graphic rather than me. Join us for the grand opening of the Stone Barn Nature Center. Visitors will be treated to the climbing wall, community booths, educational content, a gift shop, which is really kind of cool, and tours of the barn. It will be this Saturday, 3/19/2022, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Duke Magian Wilderness Park at 3429 Mark Ridge Road, La Crescenta, California, 91214. So we look forward to seeing you there. It should be very interesting. And the history of the barn, which was the La Mesnais barn, was it was owned by a Frenchman who during World War I left the Crescenta Valley and went back to France to fight the Boche, which were the Germans, and came back after the war. And this has survived more than 2 earthquakes, big earthquakes, and it has a really interesting history, and we'd like to see you there. That's again Saturday, March 19th, 2022, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., 3429 Mark Ridge Road, Glendale, 91214. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. That's right up the street for me. For anyone who wishes to go, you just go up New York Avenue to the top, and you'll see the sign for Division Park, and it's right there. Thank you. Looking forward to that. Any other commissioners with comments? Yes, Commissioner Yurka.
On a similar note, I would like to point out that the Doctor's House in Brand Park is going to be reopening for tours on Sunday, May 15th, just in the event we don't have an April meeting. I thought I would get this in there. But I also wanted to announce that there's going to be a kind of special reopening on Saturday, May 14th. And I don't have the exact time, but it's in conjunction with an exhibition, Early Women Entrepreneurs of Glendale. And each room of the Doctor's House will highlight a talented woman: Nell Shipman, Fanny Briggs Carr, Dorothy Thorpe, A. Lois Modlin, and Piedad Yorba Soul. That's for you, Sean. So it's going to be for members, the general public, and anyone who wants to come. And we're looking forward to welcoming in-person events there again. Thank you.
That is terrific. Thank you, Catherine, very much.
And we should have an April meeting. Announce this twice.
Hopefully.
Okay. Lorna or Chris? Nope. Okay. I will now close commissioner comments. And next item, J, is old business. Do we have any old business?
We do not.
Excellent. Moving on to new business. Item A is 711 East Mountain Street, a Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act application. And let's hear the staff report.
J.C. Conley, take it away.
You got it. Right. This is the Glendale Register of Historic Resources nomination and Mills Act application for 711 East Mountain Street. 711 East Mountain Street is located near the center of the city on the north boundary of the pending Bellhurst Historic District. It's located at the base of the Verdugo Mountains on a northward sloping 6,668 square foot lot. The eclectic Spanish colonial revival style building was constructed in 1923 for original owner Frank Eccles. The builder of the property is listed as Guy Worth Colkins, but no architect was identified. The building is set back deep on its lot, presumably to take full advantage of the southern views, and its large-scale massing gives it a dramatic presence over the street below. The building is clad in smooth stucco with a mostly flat roof, aside from the sloped roofing at the center shielding the west windows and entrance porch. Additionally, at street level, the property has a two-car garage constructed partially into the slope of the lot, with original swing-up doors and stepped parapet echoing the castle-like design of the residence. Ledgestone stairs, altered at an unknown date, lead to the asymmetrical primary facade, which is composed of blocky volumes, and a large two-story square tower with crenulated parapet is the focal point of the property. The front patios, made of flagstone pavers and a rock wall, bench, and fountain, were added in the 1960s by owner Nino Corbet. The entrance porch, elevated and set off center, has a sloped roof clad in red clay tiles, which shields the arched wood entrance door that has a mutton pattern mirroring the windows on the building. The window types throughout the building are varied and interestingly detailed. They include wood casement windows with inward swinging screens set in singles, pairs, and tripartite with central fixed windows, some with arched heads. The mutton patterns on the windows have staggered divides, some arched, giving intricate detail to their appearance. Muttons are also left off the central large fixed windows along the primary facade to ensure uninterrupted views from the main living spaces. These larger windows also include simple rope mullions, adding more visual detail to the large windows. The non-primary facades are simple with red clay tile coping and varied window patterns as described previously, with some compatible window replacements. The east facade here is 1 story in height. This facade has a terraced side yard with terracotta tile patio, stairs with terracotta treads, and ceramic tile risers, cinder block and concrete retaining walls, and open green space. The north and rear facade rises to 2 stories with a staircase leading down the slope of the lot. The staircase leads to a small additional patio with a deteriorated outdoor fireplace located along the west facade. The original owner of the property, Frank Eccles, owned the Roberts and Eccles drugstore with partner Fred H. Roberts, which opened its 3-story flagship location at the corner of East Broadway and Brand in 1925. The business operated this location until approximately 1960 before it closed. In 1965, noted illustrator, animator, and artist Nino Corbet purchased the property. Corbet started his career as a book illustrator, and in the late 1930s, became a background and layout artist for Disney, working on classics such as Pinocchio and Bambi, among others. Though Corbet was a prolific and talented animator and illustrator, his work does not appear to have made significant contributions to the history of the nation state, region, or city, and his most widely known efforts predate his residency at the property. Additionally, though Eccles was owner of a prominent drugstore in the city, he also does not appear to have made any significant contributions to the history of the nation state, region, or city. The property retains a high degree of integrity with minimal alterations over the years. In the 1960s, the rock fountain wall and bench were added to the primary facade of the building by Corbet. The primary stairs and terraced areas at the front of the lot were redone with ledgestone and stucco in recent years. The cinder block walls and a cinder block storage shed near the north end of the east yard were added at an unknown dates and are not aesthetically compatible with the style of the residence. Additionally, the terracotta patio and steps do not appear to be original at the rear. The garage at street level has not been altered, but the flat concrete roof is failing and in need of replacement. 711 East Mountain Street is an excellent and interesting example of Spanish colonial revival style architecture. The residence was designed to take full advantage of its location and high elevation on the hillside lot, and its dramatic siting is enhanced by the castle-like crenulated tower. Details on the building, including the blocky volumes, which are balanced by the curved wing walls and arched window openings, intricate details of the window design, asymmetrical facades, irregular massings, and small details such as rope mullions and circular clay tile vents add visual intrigue to almost all surfaces of the building and suggests a very skilled, if unknown, designer. With that, staff finds the property eligible for listing in the Glendale Register under Criterion 3. Staff recommends the name of the property as the Eccles House after the first owner, and the following conditions are recommended for the Mills Act application: to stucco the cinder block walls at the rear of the property to match the residence, stucco and re-roof the non-original cinder block storage shed at the rear of the property. Roof cladding and shape should be sympathetic to the design of the house and approved by planning staff. Repair the damaged terracotta tiles at steps and rear patio, and repair the failing garage roof. I am available for questions.
Thank you very much, Casey.
You're very welcome.
And the speaker has made herself available to questions, as we used to say in parliament procedure. Are there any questions for the speaker?
The only thing,
Commissioner Morgan.
yes, I think this also could be on not only for the what is it they had besides number 3. I think number 2.
Is this a question for Casey or a deliberation? Just checking.
A little bit of both, maybe. It's just that when they said that the house originally, the Eccles family was very prominent in Glendale in the 1910s. They came here in 1903. And by the time they set up in the corner of Broadway and Brand, they were very influential. It was the place where the Morrison family, Mr. Morrison, who was the father of John Wayne, he had that place. He was very influential in the city of Glendale, and I think it may, though I'm stumbling over stuff right at the moment, I think if I could get all my stuff together, it would be important for number. God, I sound like Joe Biden.
Criterion 2 for association with the Eccles family.
Yes, for the Eccles family. They are very influential since being here, since they were here before the city of Glendale was incorporated. So they had a very important influence that I think is kind of missed in this report. I think the report's wonderful, but I do believe that as the second one, I think it could be put in there. That's it.
Jay, can we ask Commissioner Morgan to write something up to submit to Casey later?
Well, not if we're going to be voting on whether it's significant under Criterion 1 tonight. If the commission during its deliberation wants to talk about this and thinks that it may be worth pursuing, we would have to continue the item, get the information, we'd have to review it, and I'm sure there's something there, but we also have to be very aware of the time frame when Mr. Eccles made his contributions to the city. Does it overlap with the time period the family lived in the house? So, we would certainly analyze it. If the commission agrees with staff, we find it eligible under Criterion 3. We don't need to be eligible under another criterion, and we could certainly add information to the file, the record that we keep here, even if the commission didn't vote for its significance under that criterion. So there are a couple of paths you can choose to take.
Okay. Commissioner Yurka.
Well, yeah, I guess I have a question about this, because I do feel that I understand that if it's eligible under one criterion, that's all that's necessary. But I do think it's important that we recognize properties for their associations with important people, places, and events. So if it would be eligible, I would like us to consider that. I also had a question, Jay. and this is regarding the contributions of the family and whether it overlaps with the property. My understanding, and I think this would be the case with Nino Carbe as well, if he were considered important enough for a property associated with him to be historic, that one of the things we're concerned with is whether there's any other property associated with a significant person. So Mr. Eccles, my guess is that his 1903 house, if he had one, is likely gone. And this may be the only property left or residents left that would communicate that its significance in relation to a person.
If we can determine that Mr. Eccles is significant, you're right, but we have to establish that first. With Nino Carbe, we don't believe that his contributions are in themselves significant, although he's a very interesting story and did some cool stuff. So the commission can, of course, disagree with staff, and there is material in the nomination for Nino Carbe to some degree. There's more stuff available on the internet. A lot of that's prepared by the family, and I don't know if it's corroborated in other locations, but that's another story. But you're absolutely right. We could consider properties that there's no surviving example of a building. But we also, even with Mr. Eccles, we just need more information. We tell people routinely that just because you're a successful business person doesn't mean you've made significant historical contributions to the community or the world beyond. But once we have the information in hand that we can review, sure, we're always open to that.
Well, I guess this leads me to another question, which is the obligation of the applicant versus the obligation of staff to do this sort of research. I mean, as someone who was kind of self-taught in doing research related to preservation, and who's recently let my Ancestry account lapse, it can be very hard to, as an amateur, to sort of get this information together. Whereas if you've got sort of expert amateur, as I will, and perhaps that's not sufficiently generous to you, Mike, or the historic preservation staff, who are in fact experts and who presumably would have an easier time pulling out this kind of information. I'm just wondering where the obligation lies.
We've always placed the burden for providing information on the applicant, and that's why so many applications that you review have historical reports prepared by consultants. And we're not ready to commit staff time to helping people get on the register and get their Mills Act applications at this point. We do a limited amount of research, often out of curiosity or just to flesh things out or to do a background check on information that we receive. And we certainly have that capability, but at this point, we're not going to be able to offer up that time. So if the commission ever feels that a nomination, and we have, worked with applicants where we tell them there's not enough here to kind of substantiate some of the claims that are made, we've many times asked people to go back and either do deeper research or hire a consultant. We didn't do that in this case. It's definitely something where we could, like I said, continue this, ask the applicants, the owners, to see what Mike Morgan has, possibly work with a consultant to put together a fuller package. And I certainly agree with you that yes, it is wonderful to have associations and make that part of the record for the city's historic preservation program. But it's it's not necessary, given that we have the possibility that this meets one of the criteria.
But if I can just interject, I just find, it's a little hard for me to find it eligible only on one criterion. If it might, then basically we're saying it's not eligible for the others. And if there's a good chance, and I trust.
Based on the information in the record, we're not saying anything other than that. So
yeah. All right. but I would.
I think during deliberation, I think this is a great topic for the
Okay.
commissioners to discuss
Okay.
and think about, the level of information that you'd like to see here.
Okay. Any other questions for staff, for Casey, on her report from commissioners? Yes, Lorna.
Casey, I'm just going to ask a quick question on the property regarding the fireplace at the back. Do you have any sense of, if that was an original feature or?
We don't think it was original. We don't know when it was added, but it didn't seem to be original. And it's just been severely deteriorating. The homeowner might know a little bit more of when it was added, but we did not think it was original.
Okay, and you don't have a feel for if it's an early addition. You don't really have a sense.
It's
Jay,
reminiscent of the stonework, and there's a little fountain at the front that you probably saw if you visited. It's reminiscent of that Nino Carvet work, but it does feel, because it's so deteriorated, it just feels older.
Right.
We didn't look at it closely to look at the way the stones were laid or anything.
Okay.
But yeah, the owners may have some insight.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cognotti, do you have any questions? All right. Casey, thank you very much for your presentation.
Very welcome.
Okay. It's now time for staff to for our owners to speak.
Okay. First, thank you to. What's that?
It's time for your pitch.
Ah, okay.
And if you guys
really got butterflies.
Before you start, if you could just state your name so we have it in the record. So.
My name's Steve Sherman, and this is my wife, Christina Kasnoff. And first, thank you to Jay and to Casey for coming out and providing some guidance in this process. And also thank you to them for giving us some names of some research historians that could have done probably a more comprehensive job of the research than I managed to do as an economist rather than an expert on historical research. Unfortunately, both of the usual suspects seem not to be operating, and so I ended up doing it myself. But thank you also to 4 of the 5 commissioners for coming out to the house and spending lots of time with us while we babbled on excitedly about all the things that we love about this house and all of the little details that have caught our attention and that we think are charming. With that, I should probably talk about the house. So Christina and I have been searching for the better part of a year. We looked pretty much at every Spanish listing in our price range that came in between Toluca Lake and Monrovia for that year. And we quickly realized that we were drawn to the earlier Spanish colonial revival houses, which tended to have even more interesting and beautiful to us details than some of the later houses. And by the way, I should mention that we started this search, and we continue to believe this, that we are 53 and 54 as I speak. And our plan was when we were searching, is to buy a house that we can live in for the rest of our lives. And what we bought is the house that we fell in love with, this house here, which we still plan to live in the rest of our lives. Despite the 50 steps that come up to it, it's a surprisingly livable house. When we bought it largely on emotion. Neither of us is knowledgeable about architecture or history, but we were drawn to it immediately because it's such a beautiful and interesting example of of a Spanish colonial revival house. Since we bought it, we've realized some of the details that appeal to us about it. Design, of course, the windows, especially for those of you who've seen it in person, are they're unusual, for one thing. They're varying designs around the house, but they all coordinate with them, every one of them, including the probably 20% of the windows that have been replaced. They match other windows of similar shapes. Not only are they pretty, but they are very functional. A lot of the windows have transom screens or transom windows at the top so that we can get ventilation in the summer. The windows that have great views don't have muntins in them. The windows all swing out for the most part. There are 5 double hung windows at the back of the house. They all swing out and then swing in with, they all have matching swing in screens. And that makes the house beautiful because you see the munt detail much better than you do in many houses with screens. And it makes it very livable because it keeps the bugs out and we can get fresh air. Another detail that appeals to us both aesthetically are the clay, both aesthetically and functionally, are the clay pipes that run around in the short attic all around the perimeter of the house. They go a long way to keeping the house cool by ventilation. And as to back up my claim, this house is 99 years old, and to this day it is unair conditioned, and we plan to keep it that way. That's how well designed the house is from a livability functional point of view. There are other things that we appreciate about the house are the integrity. Obviously, the stucco is original to the house. If you look closely at it, you'll see many repairs related to many little things over the many years, but it's original and it's smooth and it's interesting. I already mentioned the windows are something that appeal to us. The footprint of the house, speaking of integrity, is exactly the same as it was when it was built. As Casey noted, the patios have been added since then, and of course stairs. But it retains a high degree of integrity. Throughout the interior of the house, I know this is probably of less interest, there are lots and lots and lots of original hardware. Essentially all of the windows have their original latches. I've been busily boiling those original latches to get off the protective layers of latex and probably lead-based paint that previous owners applied for us so that we can get the house looking more like it was when it was built. Same thing with vents on the heater vents are an interesting design. So why are we applying? One is we want it protected. We love this house. We think it's a great addition or a great member of the neighborhood. It's not an addition and that it was the first house in the neighborhood, but it's a great member of the neighborhood. As literally, well, I shouldn't say literally, especially these days, but constantly people are stopping when they're walking by on Mountain Street and saying, oh, we love your house. Thanks for exposing it. When we bought it, it was hidden behind a forest of trees. And we wanted to share it with the community. And I'm just looking at my notes. So we want it protected. We are doing right by it. We're trying to get everything, the things that aren't already original, we are trying to restore to something resembling original. Things that are original and deteriorated, we are addressing. Alan Adams, who I suspect many of you know, is starting the windows at the front of the house in my office and our bedroom on Monday. If you've driven by recently, that's why the porta potty is in our driveway right now. And we think it's worthy of inclusion in the Glendale Register for exactly the same reasons that Casey explained. And I can't do better than she did. But Christina, do you have anything you added? I kind of got on a soliloquy there.
My favorite thing about the house is the arches. I get lost counting the arches in the windows, the arches in the walls, the arches outside in the walls. It's just
arched muntins in the square windows.
Yeah, it's, it's such a grand, gracious house, but it's so livable. And it's been really fun finding the right hardware that we need. We found the matching sink to the original toilet, the standard, now American standard. Not of the same year, but of the same series. So things like that are very exciting. We do have the garage about to be worked on, and as well as getting the stucco and the tiles repaired. That were all on the list of things to do. It is a Spanish house. It is another Spanish, but I feel like it's so unusual. I just feel like it's got some Moorish qualities that are so unique to this neighborhood. I think it's pretty special, and I'd love to see it preserved forever.
Thank you both very much. Appreciate your honesty and love of arches.
Thank you for letting us go on past our 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure.
It's always good to share a passion for the homeowners. Okay, any comments from the commissioners for the homeowners?
We have no public callers, just.
Okay, no public callers. Okay. No public callers. Is it now time for commissioner comments?
Yep.
Okay, commissioner questions for the owners. Any questions?
It's a lovely house. I mean, it speaks for itself.
Yes, Commissioner Yurka, you're muted.
Thank you. I had a question, but it's not for the owners. And I just wanted my memory refreshed about the stairs in the front. And I apologize, I meant to look this up before the meeting. They're obviously a recent alteration. Were they unpermitted and then subsequently permitted? And do we know do we know whether, I'm assuming they were pretty simple concrete leading up, and Lorna, you may be able to, because you're in the neighborhood, you may remember, do we know if they were as wide as they are at present?
I did a little keeping on Google Street View earlier, and you can't quite see how they look like they're the same width, and they do look like they were a simple concrete back in 2014. You have to get pretty far away to be able to go back and Google Street View from the property. For some reason, it only lets you see January 2021 right in front.
Yeah, very frustrating.
Sometimes very frustrating, sometimes very helpful, but other times very frustrating.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like they were altered in size. It does look like they were just a simple concrete and then the ledge stone was added.
Thank you. And I don't know why I didn't think of Google Maps. It's my go-to.
My favorite, yeah.
Obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, I did check that too, and it was frustrating. So, but I remembered them. I remembered the stairs being concrete. I think the homeowners suggested when I did my visit that one of the neighbors had suggested they were river rock. But yeah, they definitely were not what they are now.
So if you go back a little bit further, and now that you say that, I couldn't tell if this was the property. It does look like they may have been river rock at one point.
Okay.
Actual stairs or the side walls?
The front stairs. But Google Street View isn't clear enough to make that determination, like to actually say it. It could be a different property. It could just be the retaining wall there. So.
Okay. Any other questions for the homeowners from commissioners? All right, seeing none. Steve and Christina, thank you very much for your presentation. And you're welcome to listen in and discuss amongst ourselves. And hopefully we resolve it without coming back to you for questions, but that has happened in the past. So stay tuned.
We are standing by. Thank you.
Okay. Jay, any comments before commissioners chime in?
Not from me and not from any members of the public. So it's time for deliberation.
All right. Let's see. Commissioner Craig Noddy, any comments from you first?
Thank you, sir. No, I mean, I think it's a beautiful house. Like someone said earlier, it does speak for itself. And I really do appreciate that they trimmed the trees back. I think it's so important then when the city, when a homeowner gets into partnership with the city for historic, with a Mills Act and to establish a historic resource, that this residents get to enjoy it, that they don't just put up a privacy hedge all of a sudden or something like that. So I always appreciate that our resources are visible for everybody. So thank you for that. I'm sure I know a lot of people have the same feeling that your neighbors had, which was like, oh my God, that's up there. That's amazing. So anyway, that's it. Thank you, guys. It's a great house.
Thank you. Commissioner Yurka.
Thank you. Yes, I agree that it certainly meets the architectural criterion for a Spanish colonial revival. And thank you very much for the tour. And also, I just want to echo what Chris Cragnotti just said about allowing the public to really see the architecture because it is so special and unique. I did want to throw out one possible suggestion to my fellow commissioners in terms of the Mills Act conditions. And these do have to do with this staircase, not so much the terraces, the sort of stone terraces, but I did find the staircase, which I know was not done by the current owners, just very incompatible and inappropriate for the architecture. I don't know how to resolve the river rock question because when I was just sneaking on Google Maps, I could not even get historic Google Maps. I couldn't look at anything besides January 2021. But I do think a simple concrete staircase would be more appropriate to this style. And I know that sometimes, and I am very driven by concerns about sustainability and not just wholesale getting rid of materials without really thinking it through. What I think makes it important for me is just because the house is set so far back on the lot that what you really see at street level is that winding staircase along with the garage. And I think it would be more appropriate to have something simple that would match the Spanish colonial style. So I throw that out to my fellow commissioners. But that's a suggestion. Otherwise, I agree with the conditions and certainly am enthusiastic about adding this house to the register.
Thank you. Commissioner Vartanian.
Thank you. There are so many things I want to say about this house. I really don't know where to start. So I'll start by saying that I want to thank you for the tour, and I want to thank you for your interest in, listing the home and preserving it. I've admired the house from the street for as long as I've lived in the neighborhood, which is over 20 years. And so walking by and always looking up and knowing there was something fabulous up there, but not being able to, exactly make it out, just definitely the wonderful tower with the crenellations. And I too was thrilled when all of the overgrowth came down and we could just really see, the beautiful architecture. I just think it's a shame that we don't know who designed it because it would be so nice to see what else they designed if they did. But that'll be a little bit of a mystery, I guess. Steve, I would agree with you. It's definitely a great member of the neighborhood. And Christy, you said it's just another Spanish. It is not just another Spanish. This is, I think, one of the most special homes in Ross Moines, definitely, and maybe in the city. I don't know that we have another tower like that. And so I can absolutely support the nomination based on everything, all the reasons provided in the staff report, the photographs, visiting. I was really surprised to see the number of windows, and thank you for allowing me to come into the house. Just walking through, as you said, it's so livable. I mean, there's so much light and there are so many openings, and the windows are, you know, are so beautiful. Again, the Munton patterns, I don't think I've seen patterning like that personally anywhere else. And I've been in a lot of homes in Glendale and outside of Glendale, historic properties. So you really have something unique there. And just the overall design, I mean, Casey, if you could go to the slide of, there's a slide of the west side of the house, sort of on the side where the fireplace is. And I always like to look at pictures, so I'm gonna make you do that. But just the thoughtfulness, like even right there, just the way that long wall has been, you know, stepped back 3 times. It's just been so nicely articulated and thought through. And the facade, of course, just the balance of that beautiful asymmetrical facade with the 2-story tower. It's really a special home. So I would agree that I do agree with all of staff's conditions, and I would agree that, or I'm also sorry that the stairs, you know, leading up to the house were changed, and a material that I think if at least the coloring were more appropriate, it would look better. You know, we've kind of got this gold colored stone, I think, that's just really sticking out with the river rock. That said, I know we've not asked homeowners to make changes on other properties for even smaller change outs, such as doors or windows, because we didn't want to send them to landfill. And so I'm really hesitant to ask for the stairs to be redone, mostly for that reason. I'm hoping that maybe over time, with aging and weathering, they will mellow out. I don't know anything about how this particular material ages. And I think, you know, the current owners didn't make that change. I suspect they might have been a little more sensitive if they had. So you know, I think just for that, just for the reason that you suggested, Commissioner Yurka, we haven't wanted to pretty much rip out and send, you know, newer materials to landfill. And so I would think carefully, personally, I would think carefully about that. And that's where I'm coming from. One thought I'd like to put out to my colleagues is regarding the fireplace. I think it's such an interesting feature, and when we find these, again, it seems like maybe it's not original to the property, maybe it's from, you know, the Carbet period of the 60s. I know we have a wonderful property in Rossmoyne, off of Rossmoyne Avenue, that has a lower area with a grotto and a built-in fireplace. So I'm wondering if we might want to suggest that this be retained and not removed from the property, just as a reference to the history, or as another, you know, historic element of the property. And I think those are my comments for now. I think you guys definitely need to plan a 100-year birthday party next year, and I'm sure the Glendale Historical Society might reach out to you. Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing the home forward. Those are my comments for now.
Thank you, Lorna. Commissioner Morgan, your
Hello
comments, sir.
I have to say, echo all of my other commissioners' comments. It is very unique. And the fact that there's no air conditioning in a 100-year-old house is just amazing. By this time, normally, most of the owners would have run air conditioning all over the place. So I comment you on the fact that it doesn't have any air conditioning, but you can just open the windows and get air at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The breezes come up and it's just a beautiful place. I did want to say something about the fireplace. It looked like, but wasn't exactly indicative of what we used to have incinerators in Glendale. It was in the mid 50s and I was around at the time. The city of Glendale decided that we couldn't have, because of the pollution and the smog, that we couldn't have incinerators, but it looks a little bit like some of the incinerators that I saw on Royal Boulevard where I was growing up. But I wouldn't know how to, get the information to find out whether it was or wasn't an incinerator. I like to say that I would not want it to be held up because I have a thing for the Eccles family, but the fact that the house itself is a monument to the Eccles family. So I think we should proceed with the nomination and vote on it because it definitely needs to be on the Glendale Register. It's, as everyone has said, it's incredibly unique, and I love rounded windows. Everybody tends to do them with square, and it was just so nice. And I have to thank, truthfully, Christina for going out of her way to see me yesterday because I couldn't make it over the weekend. And her enthusiasm for the house is just beautiful. I mean, you want the house to have people that love it, and these people love it. So I'm all for it. So anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for nominating it too.
Thank you, Mike. I am sorry I was gone this weekend. We were camping in Joshua Tree National Park, where you make reservations months in advance, and couldn't get away until I returned in time for our meeting. So I look forward to looking at the house. I remember driving by it on the way to Hoover many years, but it was all covered up by brush. And I did not knock on the door. I'm sorry. I just looked at it from the street and was amazed to see it and knew it was special from all the pictures and stuff in earlier reports. So thank you very much, Steve and Christy. And without any further comments, oh yes, Commissioner Yurka. There we go.
Thank you. I did have two quick things I wanted to say. One is, Mike, that I agree we can vote on it today, but it's going to be a little while before it goes to City Council, and I would really urge you to provide staff with whatever information you can about the Eccles family, because I do think it would be wonderful if staff could say, here is what the commission voted on. However, Commissioner Morgan presented this information, and we could invite them to add its eligibility under the second criterion. The other thing I wanted to suggest, if there's a consideration, to add a condition about the fireplace in the rear as a historic feature, there should also be a condition about repairing it. So, Lauren, I don't know if I tend not to think of it as part of the historic property that needs to be retained. But I think it would be odd to say, don't get rid of it, but leave it in that, it's okay to leave it in that state of disrepair. And I assume on their own, the homeowners are going to take care of it in one fashion or another. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you.
So if I can respond to that. And Jay, I'm going to look to you because I think it would be interesting, actually. I think Commissioner Morgan brings up a good point. I don't know that it's an incinerator, but even if it were an incinerator, I think that's a really interesting historic feature to retain, just to give us an idea of a time when incinerators existed. Also, I don't know, would we want, if we don't have any photographs of what the original fireplace looked like, would we want to try to recreate it, or would we just leave it there, as is, just a historic feature in its historic state?
Well, in the past, the commission has asked for conditions that have a slightly speculative quality, where staff should investigate this feature, determine 2 things. One, was it possibly an incinerator? My best guess is no. It's very handmade looking. And there's even an incinerator at the Art Even House that is protected as part of that designation. That's a solid concrete, it's a concrete structure of its own, which is how many incinerators I'm familiar with were, but some were also brick. This one's kind of a hodgepodge, but we'll definitely look at it because Commissioner Morgan might be correct. But we could do two things. We could say, you know, keep it and clean it up as you're suggesting, just so it's not as ragged looking. We could also check to see if there's any physical evidence on it of what it may have looked like in terms of placement of stones or anything else. And so if you left an open-ended condition, that if staff finds that there's enough evidence of its former appearance, that it be restored as closely as possible to that appearance. I think that would be a fair condition. And then if we find we have no idea what's going on here, worst case, we'll just have the owners clean it up a little bit and make it look as good as it can, but definitely not tear it out, which I assume they don't want to.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Any other last minute comments?
Other than I agree with Kathy, I would like to write up the information on the Echoes family because they are very important in the early history of the city of Glendale, and that's the area I'm most fascinated with. So anyway, yeah, I agree with that, and I would love to submit the information on the Echoes family.
Yeah, and that's something we will definitely insert into the application, bring forward in the staff report to City Council. We'll weigh in on that. So we will have a staff opinion one way or the other, or somewhere in the middle. And then it could be an important thing, especially if we're kind of dubious and the commissioners think it's important. I think it's a great opportunity for commissioners to speak to City Council about it also, which is always nice when we have commissioners participating in the second stage of this process. But that's jumping the gun because it could be totally significant for the Eccles. So,
Lorna, was your hand up 1 minute ago?
You know, I was just, yeah, Jay, I think you somewhat spoke to my question, but obviously the property only needs to meet one criterion. And so if you know, there were a second criterion to be added, where do we really see that other than the information would exist in the file, right? I mean, I'm just trying to, you know, in terms of the significance of having that.
it shows up on the plaques that people have put in front of the house. When it's significant for an association, we make sure that that's highlighted on the plaque. That's an important part of the plaque.
Okay.
It's actually more fun than saying yet again that it's another nice example of a Spanish colonial revival house. So that's the most public facing way to do it.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so.
Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much, okay. Great.
The
So
chair will
I'd be happy to make a
motion on item A, 7A.
I'd be happy to make a motion. I guess I just need to confirm that we all agree that, sorry, let me go to my notes.
If I can jump in, and Casey, are you ready to read back the conditions or?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
And we
please.
just need to determine if we want to add that condition for the fireplace.
I think we'll put that in as, if Lorna's making the motion, I assume she wants that condition in there. And then the only thing we haven't gotten any further consensus on is the staircase, in terms of whether that should be restored to something close, or not restored is the wrong word, just rebuilt or redone in a way to not feel so contemporary. But I didn't hear any other commissioners focus on that so much, so. Okay.
Lorna, want to continue?
So just to clarify what the additional Mills Act condition, how you would like that to read, Jay, would that be something like keep the fireplace and clean it up, or if staff can determine what it looked like, staff will work with the homeowners to.
What we generally do in DRB for design review meetings is we kind of verify that you want to approve the staff conditions as written, and then we then we'll read back a kind of a rough version of what may turn into the condition, and so that everyone's kind of on the same page, and then you vote on that.
Okay, so are you guys going to read back condition 5?
I'm happy to take a crack at it, but I want to give Casey the opportunity if she's ready.
And that's for the new condition.
Right.
Yeah, so the new condition would be if staff finds evidence for former appearance of the outdoor fireplace, restore to that appearance. If no evidence, owner will clean up and retain as is.
And you said clean it up, right?
Clean it up and retain, yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, so with that, I will move that the Historic Preservation Commission recommend to the City Council that the property at 711 East Mountain Street be listed in the Glendale Register of Historic Resources based on the findings identified in the staff determination, and also with the conditions recommended by staff 1 through 5, and that the HPC also recommend that based on the city's naming protocol, the property be called the Eccles House. I also move that the HPC recommend that the City Council authorize the city manager to enter into a Mills Act contract with the property owners for property tax savings with the conditions noted above.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Kathy, go ahead.
I'll second.
Thank you. Jay, it's now order and time for a roll call, please.
All right, Commissioner Morgan?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Commissioner Crignati?
Yes.
Commissioner Yurka?
Yes.
Commissioner Vartanian?
Enthusiastically, yes.
And Chair Doom?
Yes.
Very good.
Congratulations to homeowners on unanimous vote. Oh, look at her all teary-eyed. That's fantastic. We appreciate your efforts and application and look forward to doing this more in the future. Good luck with City Council.
Congratulations.
And for the commissioners, this is a good opportunity to throw out just when we're doing site visits, we strongly encourage you to try to go visit the site during the hours that the owners have offered. But as Mr. Morgan did, and I encourage you all to check with us, we're happy to double check with the owners if they have any other time, if you're not available on the weekend. We don't want to make this a regular policy, but if it's kind of a one-off thing, just don't hesitate to check in and ask if we can do that for you.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Want to say that, you know, if they hadn't took my catalytic converter along with all the catalytic converters in the city of Glendale, I would have been there on that day. But, you know, the Friday before, they liberated my catalytic converter. And then you can't go anywhere because the noise is tremendous. But I want to thank Casey. She was so good. She was, I mean, I can't say as much as how good she was. And believe me, I will make it so that they won't take my catalytic converter again. I guarantee you.
Oh, sounds threatening.
It is. But thank you, Casey. You were wonderful. You're
very welcome.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you. Item 7B, 1420 Winchester Avenue, Glendale Register Nomination and Mills Act application. The city owners are present. Great for joining us.
Hi there.
Well, you're not up yet, but I appreciate you turning your camera on and joining us. Thank you, Dennis.
Sure.
It is now time for a staff report on this application. Casey, take it away.
You got it. Right. This is the Glendale Register of Historic Resources nomination and Mills Act application for 1420 Winchester Avenue. Oh, there we go. 1420 Winchester Avenue is located south of Brand Park in the El Meradero neighborhood. This area was formerly Leslie Brand's airfield at the foot of his estate, which was subdivided in 1926 for residential development and almost fully built out by 1940. The property is located just west of the border of the South Cumberland Heights Historic District. The Spanish colonial revival style building was constructed in 1930 by the original owner, James H. Bullard, with the architect's name illegible on the permit. The building has an irregular massing with 1-story height to the south and 2 stories to the north and rear. It is clad in stucco with a cross-gabled low-pitched roof, clad in red clay tiles with deep eaves and exposed rafter tails. The central tongue-and-groove entrance door with glazed speakeasy opening has a deeply recessed and canted surround. The small concrete entrance porch has flanking plinths that were tiled in the 1990s, which are mirrored at the sidewalk with additional non-original tile plinths. The wood French doors with wrought iron Juliet balcony are visible on the 2nd story to the north, and a small covered balcony with wood railings is located to the south. The side facades are generally simple in design. The northeast facade seen here along the driveway was altered with 2 additions at the 1st story, which removed the original double-hung wood windows, replacing them with wood casement and tripartite windows with tile surrounds. The original wood windows can be seen along the 2nd story on this facade. The rear facade is generally symmetrical and flat in appearance. 2 doorways open onto the backyard at either side. A non-original wood door to the north is accessed by a double concrete staircase, and to the south, a pair of French doors is accessed by a 3-sided stairway that narrows as it rises. Non-original windows along the rear facade include wood casement windows and wood tripartite windows. The rear yard contains a detached 1-car garage clad in stucco with a gable roof, clad in red clay tiles and an aluminum roll-up door. A built-in barbecue grill, elevated patio, and a wood pergola over the southern door of the residence were added presumably in the 1990s. The property, though in good condition, has seen a number of alterations over the years, which reduces its historic integrity. Some of the major alterations include the replacement of the wood portal over the driveway, the addition of concrete plinths at the sidewalk, and the tiling of both these and the original porch plinths, and replacement of the walkway. As mentioned above, the northeast facade had 2 additions, adding a good amount of square footage to the building, while also replacing the original windows. This is a photo from the 90s, and you could see the addition being added. In 1939, a permit was issued to enclose the sleeping porch seen here at the rear of the property, and in the 90s, wood rot led to the replacement of much of the original wood and the windows. Other alterations include rubble retaining walls at the rear, wood pergola with tiled wood feature at the rear, an elevated patio, and the addition of tile and wrought iron work throughout. While 1420 Winchester Ave is a good example of the Spanish colonial revival style, it does not rise to a level of being a distinctive or exemplary example, and the large number of alterations over the years have removed or altered significant amounts of historic fabric. Though those alterations were taken with care and skilled craftsmanship, the cumulative impact of these changes leads staff to conclude that the property does not retain enough integrity to be eligible for designation. Staff therefore recommends the commission recommend not to list the property in the Glendale Register. Available for questions.
Thank you, Casey. Any commissioners have questions for staff? Okay, there are no questions for, oh wait, Lorna, go ahead.
Sorry, Casey, I have a quick question. I think the staff report talked about the addition of iron grills at the facade of the house.
So there's iron grill work kind of throughout. There's at the front on some of the windows. There's the ironwork at the window adjacent to the door. There's the railings on the rear. There's the window box on the rear. It's kind of just throughout the property.
And those were all added newly? Okay.
Between like the 90s and today.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Yurko?
Thank you. The staff report mentions restuccoing in the late 90s, but I asked the property owners about it, and they said that it had not been restuccoed, and I believe that's during the period of their ownership. So it was a permit in the file.
I don't know if there was a permanent style. I think we believed the stucco on the property the texture of it didn't feel like it had been original. I don't know. Jay, you
Yeah,
want to
I
jump in
can't
on that?
remember if we knew the date or not. One way to check would be to see with the addition on the driveway side, if the stucco closely matched that. Did they do a perfect job matching the historic stucco, or did they restucco the whole house? At that time, I don't know, but the owners could best answer that question. But there was something about the stucco that seemed a little off, I guess, if I remember.
Yeah, I think some of the window reveals were deeper than others, which made it feel like the stucco might have not been original. That facade where the additions were, all the stucco obviously is not original. So maybe some could be original, but presumably a lot of it has been replaced.
Thanks.
Any other commissioner questions?
Nope.
Okay. Do we have any phone calls or members of the public cards, Jay?
No, we have no callers tonight.
All right. I believe it's now time for our owners to make their presentation.
Great.
Your
Hi.
time. Thank you.
Happy
Introduce
St.
yourselves, your
Patrick-
names, and your address, please.
Okay. Dennis and Carol Greco,
Hello.
1420 Winchester Avenue, Glendale. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Sláinte to you. I got my Guinness here. Before I start, I just wanted to thank you for all showing up and being so kind to us as we walked you through the house. The very first order of business for us, you got to pardon me if I'm reading off the screen because I'm not good at extemporaneous speaking. So, in the report, it incorrectly says that the stucco is 100% original in the house. The only thing that was done was the 78 square feet, which is not a lot, of the kitchen, laundry room, and bathroom. And the stucco is matched perfectly. If you looked at the corner where both corners where they come together with the house, you don't see any kind of cracking, shadowing, any issue whatsoever. I mean, it is perfect. I even went to the strains of having my contractor bring the drip line, which is mandatory on new construction, all the way down to the ground so that it looks like an old edition, or absolutely original edition. So there's that. And also the grill in front, in the closet window next to the front door, that's original. The picture that I sent, I was asked to send an early picture of the house, like one of my first pictures. And it had the grill taken off because the home was being painted. So, after the window was painted, the grill was painted, it was put back on, it's completely original. And everything in the front is absolutely original. And the pergola was rotten. There was a pergola there, it was taken down and rebuilt as a very close approximation to the original. So there's that. And I would also like to tell the members that I didn't get to talk to or see that the two of us are not interested in Mills Act whatsoever. This is purely restoration, love of restoration and preservation for us. So we can eliminate that off of our bid for this if we can. So I would also like to emphasize how important and passionate conservation is to us. We are members of the Glendale Historic Society and the National Historic Society as well. I've been a personal crew member on the USS Constitution in Boston for over 40 years. And I was honored to be chosen to come aboard during their annual turnaround celebration back in 2003, I think it was. So that was a great honor for me. We are not in this for the Mills Act, like I said, and we believe that the changes on the home were necessary because of rot and termite damage, and everything that we replaced or copied were as original as we could make it to feel like it was from the 1930s. And I'm sure if you saw the house and walked through it, you'd realize that. We have 33 windows and doors, 34 if you count the one right next to me. It was the old balcony door. 9 of these windows have been replaced. 7 of them were double glazed windows that the city kind of forced on us. We couldn't replace the windows that we wanted to. And believe me, we wanted to, because we didn't want to have the expense of changing out windows, but we had to change them to double glazed, and we picked a style that we thought would work. Also, the lost my place here for a second. The back door was replaced because the original was literally non-existent. It was a aluminum screen door with louvered glass, and it had no lock on it. It was basically open to the world back then. So we replaced that door, and that's it. We let's see here, double pane windows. Oh yeah, the windows that we did replace, we chose wood, and we could have chosen vinyl. And when we put the wood windows in, we chose the proper bullnosing and everything that matched the other windows so that they looked like they were always in place there. We used local stone dug up from our own property to build the garden walls. We even saved the glass fuse 45 amp electric panel, which is now disconnected, but it's still in the wall in our laundry room. And we upgraded to 250 when we did the kitchen remodel. For 15 years ago, myself and a couple of other neighbors, we walked the neighborhood trying to make this place a historic neighborhood, Castle Heights. And we ran into the usual problems where there wasn't enough contributing homes, and a lot of people just didn't want to do it. They were afraid of it. So as the years go by, every time I see a neighbor changing his house out, I'm passionate about trying to convince them not to do the Home Depot route, try to reuse everything you can. And if you look at the map of Glendale, there's no homes from El Miradero all the way to Burbank that there's no historic home. And Castle Heights is not a district, so there's absolutely nothing from here to there. And we're hoping to be the first one. The needs of the people and their lifestyle are constantly changing and in motion. And we don't stop people from getting their designation if they've changed out their power source, cable, things like that, walkways. We try to just make them work for the building that they're in, to keep it original. And I'm just hoping that the changes we did and the preservation of the inside will reflect that. And bring our home from maybe a 70% all the way up to a 95, maybe. Because if someday Glendale decides to also have an inside designation, I hope that happens someday. We'll be ready. We'll be there already because it's completely original tile. We even have an original telephone. The toilets, original lights, sinks, everything. So that's it. That's our plea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I like your use of the word plea.
Well, yeah, at this point, it seems like a plea.
Okay. Well, there's no vote yet taken, so don't give up hope.
All right.
All right. That's what we're here. Any questions from commissioners for the homeowners? Hearing no questions, I will close this part of the hearing and have discussion amongst ourselves as commissioners, and then go this time in reverse order. Commissioner Morgan, comments?
Well, I love Mr. Greco's passion. I mean, I spent some time talking to him, and he's a fantastic person, and the house is very interesting. You know, so and I think he's done everything that you're supposed to do if you want to restore your house or renovate it to something that comes to the thing that would rise to the Mills Act. But he, like he said, he's not interested in the Mills Act. I think thinks this is kind of the beginning, the you know, the cornerstone that would kind of create a historic district in his area. And I applaud him for that, and I applaud him for his enthusiasm. But I have some questions on the house itself, and I would just like to hear the other commissioners' feelings about the house itself. So,
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bartanya. You're muted, Lorna.
Yeah, let me unmute myself. So I'd like to thank you both as well for the tour of the property, for your absolute passion for preservation. It's obvious that you are both artists, and that's evident in the design elements, you know, the way you've done your restorations, especially on the inside of your home. And thank you so much for the interior tour. Unfortunately, interiors are not regulated when listed on the register in Glendale, and I know the inside of your home is a big concern of yours, and it's absolutely, you know, spectacular. You guys have done a great job. That said, you know, your house is a very nice example of the Spanish colonial revival style. It is a simple example. And so I think I have to agree with staff at some level that I think the accumulation of some of the changes, and you know, maybe I do have a question. Casey, could we look at some of those tripartite windows, especially I think it's on the north side, and I think the north and the east. So we have a set of windows. Yeah. So I think it was suggested that by staff that the original windows likely would have been double hung. Actually, I think you guys would know because you did the addition. So I think the original windows would have been double hung, and then you chose this sort of tripartite style with the tile surrounds. Is that correct? And you can just say yes or no because we've closed the public hearing.
Yeah.
So I think the addition of that style of window with the tile surrounds, you know, I think that's a big change in the character of what would have been original to the house. And then I think we see that out at the east side as well. Yeah, and next to the kitchen door, we have another similar window. And then I'm going to guess that the windows in the enclosed balcony are now also those tripart multi-light windows that would not have been original to the home. So I think those window change outs for me are fairly significant, especially on a home of rather significant of rather simple character. And I think that in our staff report, we had photos of a couple of windows that had stained glass that was either repaired or that was either new or replacement. So I think there were at least 2 stained glass windows that were replaced.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And then at the front of the house, I know you explained that you tiled over the entryway plinths because the concrete was cracked, and that's an obvious and simple solution. And then, but we also see the addition of a new walkway with 2 additional tiled over plinths at the sidewalk. And a number of additions and changes to the backyard. So I think with all of those changes, for me, I think they're enough not to deem the house exemplary, an exemplary example of the Spanish colonial style. Obviously, everything that you've done was with a lot of thought and care. But I don't think we're looking at the original house. So those are my thoughts. And I'd like to hear my colleagues' comments as well.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Yurka.
Thank you. So I find it really amazing that during the last few hearings, we've had 2 homeowners come for to nominate their house to the Glendale Register, who've owned them for decades and are interested not in the financial benefits of the Mills Act, but in the preservation of their homes. And I think there is good reason for them to want to protect them, because we have seen what happens to even lovely examples of Glendale's historic styles when houses change hands and are not protected. I do think that there must be a way to protect and honor less grand examples of historic styles. It's true that this is a simple example, but so interestingly enough, really was the house on Grandview that we saw a few months ago. What made that less simple is just that it was so huge that it really reads as a mansion. So the language of Criterion 3, the proposed historic resource embodies the distinctive and exemplary characteristics of an architectural style, architectural type, period, or method of construction. This is where I'm going to put on my English professor hat because I love language. And I love the word exemplary because it means many things. It can mean the very best of its kind. And I think we would agree that that the house at 711 East Mountain, may be one of the best of the Spanish colonial revival kind. It also means commendable and worthy of imitation. And I do think that this house is both of those things as a modest example of a Spanish colonial revival. I understand Lorna, Commissioner Vartanyan's issues with the windows. I think for me, the deal breaker would have been if the sleeping porch had been also a recent infill. But I understand that we have evidence that it was done in 1939. And we've had other houses on the register that have similarly had porches infilled. I think the stucco did strike me as original. In fact, I was very surprised about that it was supposed to have been restuccoed. And I will disagree with the homeowners a little bit. I don't think it's a perfect match between the new addition and the existing. It's a little bit flatter, the textures. I mean, you wouldn't notice it unless you're trying to see. I think it's a good job, but I don't find it's a perfect match. And was also something that sort of reinforced to me that that we were dealing with something else with the stucco and the rest of the house. I wish that the windows had not been changed, but this house has a historic presence for me. And if this were a Mills Act contract, there would be so many conditions, I think, that would need to be followed before, including, I think, essentially the alterations just to the front with the tile, the concrete plinths that were tiled over, and then the walkway, because I do think that the simple concrete would better repay it. But I think that there would be so much to be done as to be really discouraging to a property owner and to a future owner. But you don't want a Mills Act contract. And I realize that is not a factor in a decision about whether it is eligible for the Glendale Register, but I do find it exemplary. I in fact plan to vote to list it on the Glendale Register under Criterion 3. And I just, I just thank you for caring so much about this house and being willing to bring it forward and not giving up. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you. Commissioner Cragnotti, your turn.
Thank you. This is a tough one. In so many ways that the previous house we saw was a beautiful house. It really was an outstanding example. I think this is, especially in the context of its neighborhood, is really an outstanding example. It really stands out compared to some of the other homes, even just on that block. And I came into this sort of on the fence about it, thinking we didn't really have, that it was kind of going to go one way. Now, Commissioner Yurka's comments really give me pause, because I tend to agree with her that yes, it is, especially considering there maybe wouldn't be a Mills Act contract associated with it. So I know that, like she said, isn't really supposed to affect our decision, but I could see this going. I could see giving this house historic status, particularly in context of where it is in town. There just doesn't seem to be, I'm fairly familiar with that block. There's only a couple of other really historically interesting and significant properties on the street. So, I mean, yeah, I could go either way on it. I think we should continue deliberating about it. Mr. Doom.
Thank you. I was trying to unmute myself there really quick. All right. Anyone else?
Well, I think everything that Kathy has said is exactly what I feel. It could go either way. I mean, with Commissioner Cragnotti, but I believe, I don't know, I would tend to vote with Commissioner Yurka on this property. His enthusiasm and his ability to make it exactly what it was, I think, kind of tips it over the top for me. It's when you struggle. It is modest. We tend to like to honor houses that aren't modest but more grand style. And this, I think if we were to go through all of our different nominations and Glendale Register homes, there are not a lot of more modest ones. So, I mean, I think his attitude is right. It's a lot of the stuff we want to get about those homes, and I would tend to vote with Commissioner Yurka on this one.
Lorna.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about our distinctions for being listed on the register versus having a Mills Act contract. And Jay, I'm going to look to you for this because maybe I'm confused. For if we have a home, and I'm just going to say that I think I've been seeing a tendency, least recently. In the past, we've always generally encouraged and wanted homes that are listed on the register to also have a Mills Act contract. That's my recollection over the past many years. I know last time I brought it up, Jay, you said that wasn't true. And I don't know, Michael, if, anyways. So if a home is listed on the register without a Mills Act contract, does that mean it acts like a historic district contributor? So only what we're seeing from the front is what matters. And if there are changes that are not compatible, are we not looking at a 360-degree view of the home?
Glendale Register is Glendale Register regardless. So it's a 360-degree view, all exterior parts of the building, the grounds, and everything else. I just wanted to remind the commission, we keep talking about the Mills Act. There is an open Mills Act application for your consideration tonight. The owners mentioned thinking that it might make your decision easier to show that they're not interested in the Mills Act. Mr. Greco's owned the house for so long, he doesn't stand to make a huge financial gain from that, although a future owner would receive the Mills Act contract. I also want to remind the commissioners that we revised our criteria a few years ago to include the concept of historic integrity. So not only does a property have to be an exemplary and distinctive specimen of its style, type, period, blah, 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 but also retain integrity. So I strongly encourage you to consider this. And I understand Commissioner Yurka's looking at the word exemplary specifically and thinking about that it does have multiple meanings in different use. We do, in our interpretation at staff level, think it is kind of a hierarchical. It's a really very good example in comparison to others. But if you wanted to look at it as something that's commendable and worthy of imitation, I would, and we understand the feeling here. We at staff level, we completely enjoyed our visit with the Grecos and thought, their passion is evident, and all of his decision making over the years has been thinking about the beauty and the character of the house. Of course, preservation doesn't always work hand in hand with beautification, and that's where we at staff level do come down rather conservatively in our interpretation of integrity, because we are saying that these properties represent something from the past, not something that's been altered over the years. But almost every property you've looked at has alterations. That's inevitable, and the commission has accepted many of those alterations. So I think the issue here is whether or not you have the Mills Act, where if it were put on the register, it would have the same level of review in perpetuity as it would with the Mills Act. If you wanted to do the Mills Act with conditions to bring back the house to its earlier condition, sometimes when we have a laundry list of Mills conditions, it begs the question, are we really bringing it back, or are we just changing the icing on the cake a little bit to look a little more historic? But that's what restoration can be sometimes. So it's complicated, as has been said a few times, I think. But hopefully that answered your question plus, I think.
And I would just like to make one more clarification too regarding the infill on the of the sleeping porch. Yes, I completely understand that was originally infilled in 1939. But Casey, if we could go to that, that's the view of that. I think, and maybe the homeowners can tell us. I think we have that tripartite configuration of the windows again, with the multiple divided lights that mimic or echo what we see at the kitchen. I think these just don't have the tile surrounds. So I think that would not reflect an original, style of window to the home, even though it's an infill. I think it's a completely different window than we would expect to see on this house.
Yes, if you're asking, yes, we agree on that. Although we do, just so you know, we see there was so much variety and so many ways to solve problems, and architects used to be, I don't want to say more creative, but let's say their kit of parts was more robust. But they, I just saw some perimeter grid windows on a Spanish that we think are completely original. It's not the first thing you think of with Spanish, but you do see kind of weird solutions sometimes. The problem here is that the little transom on the fixed window in the center doesn't work with the spacing of the muntins on the casement windows to the side, so it creates this kind of awkward imbalance. But it looks nice, definitely, but it's not to the period, I would say, even for a 30s replacement.
And I know it's always super, super hard for us to turn down homeowners. And again, this does not reflect on your taste or your, your intent at all, especially from my perspective. I mean, you're both artists and your artistry is obvious. We're just looking at our guidelines for listing on the historic register.
Can I mention something? Can I mention
need
something?
to reopen the public
I would have
hearing.
to reopen the public hearing.
You want to take comments?
Yeah. Without objection, I'll be happy to reopen the public hearing to the owners.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
Now, Dennis, go ahead.
The windows in question, that original window with the divides, I had no idea when I bought the house what that window looked like, because those were Hawaiian glass, slats there, and the original window was long gone. So I had to come up with something. So the wings reflect the 3 panes of glass on the dining room, and I wanted a picture window there, because I'm pretty sure that was one big picture window, possibly. And that's why I came up with that design. And once that design was set, the other one in the kitchen reflected that right in the center. And then when the balcony was replaced, put up, I put those windows up to match that one. So it was kind of I wanted to keep it all the same so that it wasn't a jumble. And I think you said the home itself is a kind of a simple example or a humble example of the Spanish style. And if by luck I would replace the kitchen windows with the double hung, you can't get more simple or inexpensive than those. And I think it would have made the house look even cheaper, frankly, or less grand, if you want to put it that way. Anyway, the city wouldn't let me do it, so I was stuck. I had to come up with a design, and that's what I did. So.
Any commissioner comments before I close the public hearing again? Okay, this part of the public hearing is now closed. Thank you, Dennis, very much. Oh, Jay, please.
Just a thought, since Mr. Greco raised the idea of the modest, the not as grand as some other houses. We don't have any official position on the grandness of houses. Typically, the people who come to us with Glendale Register nominations seem to have often been told by realtors or by friends in the Historical Society, oh, your house is amazing, you should nominate it. We are open to less grand houses, and several have been designated over the years, but I'll admit that it's not a huge number compared to the more obvious cases, let's call them. But the idea of integrity would still stand for the smallest house that we look at. The property that you're looking at today is a fantastic example of a potential contributor to a potential historic district. And I do think that there is a district here, and I'd never heard of Castle Heights as a proposal, but I've heard of El Miradero as a proposal, but it's never moved forward despite research having been done. And the Greco's property is within the tract. El Madero's the next street to the east. And both of these properties were part of the, here comes a historic image, maybe. But they were both part of Leslie Brand's airfield. And I do think that certainly El Miradero and possibly Winchester would possibly qualify as districts in the future if we get a nomination for them.
I actually designed a logo for Cumberland Heights. And I did a Castle Heights one too.
Oh, cool. I've seen the Cumberland Heights, but I've never seen the Castle Heights. So you send it to us. We'd love to have it.
Yeah, I will. The Castle Heights one, we dropped it, because it was a non-go. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah. So.
I think things are different now. So, we encourage everyone who's interested in historic districts to talk to your neighbors, and if there's interest, we're gonna take it seriously. So.
Yeah.
Lorna.
That's jumping the gun. So.
And I just want to make one more comment too. In terms of the simplicity of your home, if that was the term that I happened to use, and again, as Jay said, we don't have any specific guidelines for grandiosity, and so if the original materials were there, I think what we're really looking for is for a reflection of the home in its original condition with its original materials as much as possible, so that one doesn't need to try to improve. So that if double hung windows were simple, one doesn't need to put in a more complicated or fancier window type in order to be designated to the register. In fact, we want to see original materials as much as possible. And so, and had the original simple windows been there, it probably would not have detracted. From my perspective, it would have been more, it would have been preferable.
Well, I tried.
This is in general, not just to
I
your
tried.
Right.
All right. Any other commissioner comments? I appreciate everyone's input and would sum it up, and I agree with Commissioner Yurka. And if the item is presented as such for a nomination to simply the Glendale Register under Criterion 3, I would be in favor of that. So is there a motion among the commissioners?
You can do it.
I would make it, but I don't. This is not my forte because I don't sit here with the agenda on my lap. Chair, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just since there is an open Mills Act application that's before you for consideration, if this is your direction, you may want to open the hearing, ask the Grecos if they are willing to consider using that as a way to ameliorate some of the issues that some commissioners have raised, or you can just go ahead with the vote on the Glendale Register. I just didn't want that to be forgotten. So.
Well, I also was thinking, I mean, I'm happy to come up with a long laundry list of conditions for a Mills Act contract, but to keep things simple, can we ask them whether they would withdraw it? Because is that possible, Jay? I mean, presumably we don't, if they're willing to withdraw it now, we don't need to go through something.
Sure. Yeah, they kind of verbally said they're not interested, but if they formally withdraw it, that's fine.
So Jay, I understand they would formally withdraw and then come back later for a Glendale nomination?
No, if the commission is interested in a Glendale Register, I kind of threw that in just if you were interested in the laundry list of conditions to use the Mills Act. If you're not, and the owners, and you don't have to, the owners could tell us later also that, hey, we're not interested in the Mills Act. And we would just take it off a city council staff report if that's the direction from the council, or I'm sorry, from the commission. But if they want to verbally say tonight, please withdraw our Mills Act nomination or application, they could do that.
Okay, so it's not our decision. They have to choose to withdraw it.
It would be strange to deny a Mills Act for a property that is eligible and voted on for the Glendale Register. I will say there is one case where the commission did that in the past. It was very unusual and probably didn't make sense. I don't think any commissioners here were involved in that. But, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, but yeah, so you have multiple options here. I just didn't want that to be forgotten, is why I raised it.
All right. Any other comments, or I'll reopen the public hearing to the homeowners to ask what their input is. Okay,
oh, yes.
I'll reopen the public hearing. And homeowners, Dennis, Carol, what were your thoughts?
Oh, we're open to either one. I mean, if you want to vote on it, but we've already said that we don't care for it. It wasn't our intention originally. When we filled out the paperwork, we just assumed that we had to do it. You know, it was part of the deal. So, you know, maybe in the future, if the criteria says you don't have to do it, you know, this is not something you have to do. That would be good for other people. But we're glad to take it off and sign whatever we have to sign.
So you're going to, just for the record, withdraw your Mills Act application?
Yes.
Okay. And okay, Jay, and then we can
just to provide a little context. A couple of years ago, I think it was a year and a half ago, the commission, there was a property that was already on the Glendale Register, had many changes that had occurred over the years by previous owners. When the commission looked at a Mills Act nomination for the house, the commission said, no, this house is too changed to receive a Mills Act. And it also had a laundry list of conditions. The owner is now asking to remove the house from the Glendale Register because the commission felt it was ineligible for the Mills Act and therefore for the register. So just to kind of put just in precedential kind of background, that's a case that's ongoing right now that will be coming back to the commission, but there's some parallels here.
And that's the Rossmine property, is that correct?
No, this is on Cedar Hill, the Gregorian's house.
Oh, well, we still need to deal with Rossmine as well, but we'll bring that up another time.
that's yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other comments, or I'll close this part of the public hearing again? All right, so this part of our public hearing is now closed. Thank you, homeowners. And we are back to discussion amongst commissioners for a register nomination.
I can try to make a motion, although I will probably flub it. So if this could be corrected, unless there's further discussion, but it seemed though we were ready to make a motion previously.
Yes.
So I wanted to move that pursuant to section 15.20.050 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the Historic Preservation Commission recommends to City Council that the property at 1420 Winchester Avenue be found eligible for listing in the Glendale Register of Historic Resources. Under the naming protocols of the city, it would be called the Bowloud House.
I think, yeah.
I think that's
Boland.
Boland. Oh, that's a typo then. Boland. Okay.
Boland, yeah, I believe. Yeah, he was the first owner.
Okay.
Okay. Well, however it is, it's. I thought it was spelled Bowloud.
Bolaud. I think there's an N in there. Or did I see that wrong?
Oh. Well, we'll research it and correct it if needed. So we'll go with the staff report until proven otherwise.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Yurka. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. Now time for a roll call vote. Jay, please.
Commissioner Cragnati?
I will just say after some further consideration, I'm going to vote no on this.
Commissioner Vartanian?
No.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Yurka?
Yes.
We've lost that enthusiasm we had last time.
Oh no, I was mimicking you.
Oh, really?
As you fumbled for my name.
I didn't fumble for your name. I was thinking of the list, so I know your name. And I pronounce it well, or at least not horribly. And Chair Doom.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 3-2 to designate the house, and we'll double check on the name. So,
It's Bolen, Bolen.
Bolen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Casey.
Very welcome.
Great.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you. Pecos. Cheers to you. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
And to you, thank you.
All righty. It is now item 8, Community Development Department updates for you, Jay.
It's been a whirlwind lately. I didn't even think of updates when I had the agenda getting prepared. So not this time.
Okay.
I'll just informally say things are moving ahead with the Bellhurst district contract. It's still in process, so we haven't released it. We haven't authorized, or we haven't started the kickoff with the consultant, but it's been in process for a while. So I'm hopeful it's going to be in the next few weeks, something like that we'll do the kickoff. I've told the consultant that we're hopeful for an April startup.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Yurka.
Thank you. There were a couple things that I was hoping would be updated, so I thought I would just ask Jay and Casey. So I wanted to ask about the status of the race and ethnic context statement. Is that in preparation?
I believe we're still in the research phase. We have the consultant team working. We've had our kickoff meeting. We haven't had a subsequent meeting. I've been feeding them information that I've been learning about specific to the Armenian community in Glendale and some contacts for them to reach out. They're going to be putting together, I don't know if we're calling it a task force or a working group or what the official name will be, but they're identifying appropriate people to join that group. So that's in the process, in the works right now. So yeah, it's definitely moving forward.
Great. And, I attended a California Preservation Foundation webinar on interesting historic context statements. And they talked a lot about the importance of community outreach. So I'm really glad to hear that that's a part of this that's taking shape.
Yeah. That's built into this. So.
That's great. And who's the consultant?
It's Galvin Preservation teamed with Page and Turnbull.
Ooh, okay. And then the East-West Glendale survey, where is that in?
We have a draft RFP that's going to be under review, but it's not yet under review. And so, well, I was going to say spring, but that's over in a couple of days. So in the next month or so, we should have that out. So
I think it's winter that's over in a couple days, isn't it?
Spring is the beginning. Yes, it is the beginning of spring. You're right.
Don't cheat us. Don't send us straight to summer.
Like I said, it's a whirlwind in my head, at least. So.
And Jay, will we know once that survey starts?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'll be keeping you posted on that. It's going to begin with a context before the survey. So the survey is a ways away because we need to develop the context first.
Okay.
We're going to do it in one process, which will be different than what happened in South Glendale, where we did the context and then a few years later we did the survey. So the idea is this will be, easy transition from context to survey.
And then I just have two more other quick questions. One is, if that's okay, the status of Mills Act contracts for contributors.
Yes, I mentioned the Whirlwind. That's still on my desk. It's not ready.
So, and is that's going to council, right? Not back to us.
No, it doesn't go to anyone. It's just it just goes to whoever's interested in applying. We're still well within the application period where we just accept applications without bringing them forward for any hearing. So I'm hopeful that despite the delay getting this ready, we're still going to stay on the schedule for 2022, as we told council we would, and as the few people who are interested in this have been updated. So.
Okay,
please spread the word, and I'll do that right now for our very limited audience, I imagine. But if you're an owner of a contributor in a historic district, it's possible that you could get a Mills Act contract, save a good amount of money on your property taxes, but it is a competitive process, and you have to kind of make it through that with both HPC and City Council for a determination. But spread the word, commissioners, among all of your friends and neighbors, so that we can get a robust pool of applicants to get this thing going. And we're also going to try to work with city, as soon as this is ready, we're going to try to spread the word through whatever organs, the website, and other ways that the city has to reach people.
Thank you. And then my last question, I was just wondering about the status of the annual report to the state for the Certified Local Government Program.
Well, it would be wonderful if they sent out the form for that. There's, we have a staffing issue here. They're having what may even be a worse staffing issue up in Sacramento. Haven't seen anything for a while, so.
Yeah, I heard some interesting gossip about that, but I didn't realize that it was that dire.
Well, I don't want to say it's that dire. I'm presuming that the delay in getting us, and the funny thing is, usually the form from year to year is almost identical, but they release it every year and they make a big deal and they tell us what the deadline is, and it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, well, thank you. That's all. That's well.
No, but I'll be checking with them on other things, so maybe I'll see what the word is if anyone knows.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Yurka. Any other comments from commissioners in closing points? None?
Nope, you've done good.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to chair my first meeting. I appreciate all your kind efforts and great wisdom in observing you. And I thank staff and Jay for a lovely meeting. And I hope to see you all in person soon. I guess we'll meet next on April 21st.
Yes, and we have an item already for April, so we're not going to be shirking, canceling that meeting. So,
may I ask, is it going to be a Glendale Register nomination so I can plan that weekend to be in town?
Right now, is the case, do we have something lined up?
We do. We have at least one lined up.
Okay. Great.
Thanks. The one I was referring to will be a design review. So it's good to visit those also.
Yeah. Fantastic. I'm glad to know that. I'll write it in my calendar.
All right.
All right. So location to be determined, but we'll see you all April 21st. Thank you, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Same to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Good night, everyone.